they're really people that are denying me what God's mission is. They're holding me back. And I really tell you got to cut those anchors loose. And there's other people, these are your beacons, right? And as you're sailing off and heading towards your purpose in life, you'll come across them. And they're these big shining lights that kind of, they illuminate danger that's around you, and they guide you to directions you're going. And you may pass by them because they might be going somewhere else in this life, but they're going to be there and they want to share their experiences to make your journey easier and better because they understand that there's a higher calling and purpose for you. And I love, man, I've just learned you got to surround yourself with beacons.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Moeller Real Estate and Business Podcast. I'm your host, Phil Moeller, and on this podcast, we will be interviewing guests that have made their mark in real estate, in business, and in other areas of life. Listening to podcasts myself has helped me in so many different ways and continues to do so. If you're a real estate investor or an entrepreneur or aspiring to be either, or just someone that wants to learn, you've come to the right place. An easy way to have an impact is to share this episode with friends or family, provide a review, or just spread the word. We greatly appreciate it, and now let's get to the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Moeller Real Estate and Business Podcast. Man, I'm excited for today's guest. Honestly, I got some nerves right now. Like I'm interviewing a guy that is just an absolute amazing human being, and I'm really excited. Jeremy Locke, welcome to the show, man. I'm excited to have you.
Thanks for having me, Phil. Appreciate being here, brother.
So just a quick, I can't even do this justice, so I want to get in your story, but I'm going to introduce Jeremy. So first, co-founder and COO of organization called Aerial Recovery, which is an amazing organization. They have three really key initiatives: Heal the Heroes, Disaster Response, Anti-Human Trafficking, and they do amazing work. Their kind of theme is save lives and stop evil. So we're going to get into that and what came to that. But before that, Jeremy, 20 years of military experience. Thank you. I very much appreciate it. And on behalf of everyone and our listeners, we appreciate your service. Some high-level roles: Special Forces Team Sergeant. Like this is a serious guy here. So I appreciate the listeners listening to this and getting into it. Jeremy, tell me about your story a little bit. Like, you do amazing work now, but what led to this?
Yeah, first of all, I appreciate being on the podcast. I appreciate your support that you've shown for Aerial Recovery and all of our heroes in the program. So I really do appreciate you, and it's an honor for me to be on here with another force for good, as my wife and I like to call it, and
Awesome.
Just being out there, seeing how we can just best serve the Lord and serve the people, brothers and sisters. So, man, this is my favorite thing. I'm a combat veteran, 20 years in the U.S. Army. I spent about 10 years of that in the Special Forces, as you kind of spoke of before. I've got over 5 years of my life is forward deployed in combat zones. And as with anybody, man, like I've experienced a lot in my life. I've experienced more than some have. I've experienced more negative situations and had to do some, pretty bad things, and had seen some very bad and terrible things in my life, and more so than most, but not as much as everybody, right? But one thing that I've discovered is being able to get out and actually talk and tell my story. It's kind of a stigma in the Special Forces, especially, is like you don't really talk about the F word, right? Your feelings. You don't really talk about things that are affecting you because you don't want to take a knee on your fellow soldiers and the mission and everything. But what I've really come to understand is that stuff that's inside of you, man, if you don't get it out and you don't speak it, like that's a poison that will kind of destroy you from the inside. And that's why I really do value and appreciate the opportunity to tell my story whenever I can, because I have found that in talking about it, it always resonates with somebody on the other end, and it empowers them to go out and tell their story. And I think that's a great way to begin healing. And that's what we're doing at Aerial Recovery, man. Like we do what we call like high risk rescue missions, which is we come in after man-made or natural disasters, whether that be, Hurricane Eta, Iota, Delta, Helene here recently, earthquakes we've been to, volcanic eruptions, tornadoes, flooding, all sorts of stuff. We've been doing work and helping people, or man-made ones. Like we helped get people out of Afghanistan. That was real near and dear to myself and a lot of veterans who spent time in Afghanistan. A lot of our partners over there we worked with helped get about 250 Afghanis into Tajikistan and helped them. And then we've also spent a lot of time in Ukraine, working in Ukraine and just helping innocent people get out of the way, right? Like, I don't care what the politics are. I don't really care what's going on. Now, under AL Recovery, myself and the rest of the veterans that work with AL Recovery, we had the opportunity to go out and utilize our expertise and our skill sets to just go help people like that are in a bad situation. And and like I said, it's therapeutic for us, and it's therapeutic for me because I get to go out there and while I've seen bad things, like a lot of times I wasn't able to help those that were being affected, right? I had an enemy and a mission that was given down to me, and I was focused on that. But now my mission are these people that are on the left and the right, that are being affected by these natural disasters. And oh, by the way, we also do anti-human trafficking operations, which is to me hell on earth. And a lot of what we've really discovered is people ask me like, "Hey, Jeremy, why do you guys do natural disaster relief and anti-human trafficking, and you have a healing program for
Mm-hmm.
heroes?" And you'll appreciate this as an entrepreneur. And my wife, the other co-founder of Rail Recovery, is an entrepreneur. And it's really about like long-term sustainable impact. And how can we build a mechanism kind of like unlike anything I've ever heard of? Maybe there's something out there like Rail Recovery, but I haven't heard of it because it starts with our Heal the Heroes program, where we take veterans in the military and first responder community on a 1 year healing program. Inside of that program, we train them and teach them to not just be special operators or rescuers, whatever their background was. We teach them how to be humanitarian special operators. And then we deploy them out to go do these rescue missions. And so we're saving people that, and oftentimes we're suicidal, have attempted suicide, are alcoholics or addicted to substances. But to me, it's really a lack of purpose. And we're providing that purpose through the forward deployed work that we do with anti-trafficking operations and disaster relief operations as well. So we have this whole circular system that we got with our vets and our first responders that we're real proud of.
It's really amazing how the whole system of what you do works together. I want to start with, you said military veterans, and a lot of times military veterans that are having some really, really serious issues and
Mm-hmm.
challenges. They have an amazing skill set. Maybe when you find them, they don't have an amazing mindset, I think. And I think you
Yeah.
can build skill set and mindset. And part of that mindset, by the way, the feelings, which I think, just to kind of comment on the feelings comment you made, I think you're kind of saying that's a military issue. People don't talk about it. I think I'm sure it's a military issue. I can't relate to that specifically, but I think it's also a societal issue where it just
Mm-hmm.
people don't like, nah, you don't open up. And I think the more authentic you are with people, the more authentic people are with you. And I think we need more of that. So anyway, you can add to
Agreed.
that, but I really want to ask about this skill set mindset. Like, what do you see and what do you do for veterans that you take in that are in really bad places, and how do you kind of change their trajectory on life?
Yeah, and I do believe this is not just a military problem. It's not just a first responder problem. It is a human problem. To not feel comfortable to go out and to speak your feelings or speak your truth and your story. And what I've really understood is and learned, and I talk about this a lot. I talk about two types of people in your life. To me, you have anchors and you have beacons, right? I kind of envision everybody's my metaphor I use is you're kind of like on a ship, right? You're on a ship and you're setting sail to wherever God has in store for you. And in order for that ship to get moving, while an anchor might be great to keep you in a harbor and keep you safe, but at the end of the day, you're not going to go anywhere. And God has an amazing, impactful, wonderful purpose and mission for each and every one of us on this planet. And it's up to us to follow and figure out what that is and go and do it. And so you have these anchors that are, your friends, sometimes they're family, they're people that help hold you to what your vices are. These are like, to me, I was an alcoholic for about 12 years. These are the ones that go to the bars with me. Everything's around alcohol. If I tell them that I'm not drinking or I'm trying to get sober, which I did on many occasions, a lot of them would make fun of me for it or not believe me or, try to encourage me to drink. And they're really people that are denying me what God's mission is. They're holding me back. And I really tell you got to cut those anchors loose. And there's other people, these are your beacons, right? And as you're sailing off and heading towards your purpose in life, you'll come across them, and they're these big shining lights that kind of, they illuminate danger that's around you, and they guide you to directions you're going. And you may pass by them because they might be going somewhere else in this life, but they're going to be there and they want to share their experiences to make your journey easier and better because they understand that there's a higher calling and purpose for you. And I love, man, I've just learned you got to surround yourself with beacons. And that's really what we're trying to tell these veterans in the program is like, you're a warrior. You're a protector. That's what you chose to do. And just because you're not in the military or first responder community anymore, doesn't mean that you got to take a knee and calm down and not have that warrior instinct in you. And this is a big one for me when I was going through my healing journey, which is I'm still in now, is I had a ton of doctors and a ton of people tell me like, hey, Jeremy, like just calm down, man. Like you did it. Like you deployed a bunch of times. Like you went out there and served your country. Like just, relax. Like here, take these pills. They'll chill you out. Just, stay in there, collect your retirement. You're a 100% disabled veteran. Collect that. Just go fish. But I'm telling you, I'm not designed to stop and fish. If I'm fishing for something, I'm fishing for human traffickers that are enslaving women and children and men all over the world. Like that's me. That's that warrior spirit. And you can even hear it when I'm talking. Like I understand that like God gave me a certain set of skills, and it wasn't for those 20 years in the military. It served me in the military, but that was my training ground for these next 40, 50 years of what my calling in my life is that I believe that God's calling me towards. And that's what I'm trying to remind everybody that's in our program is like, stand up, lift your chest up, figure out where you want to go in life and where you're being called to go. And let's figure out how to get you there because you have the expertise, the skill set, the desire. And now through our Recovery and Heal the Heroes program, you have the community, which is filled with beacons that are going to illuminate you on your mission and purpose in life. And that's really what we're trying to do. And you said it perfectly earlier, Phil. It's not just a veteran problem, because when I go and speak and I get an opportunity to talk on this podcast, I know those of you that are listening, whether you're, a business executive, an entrepreneur, well, I don't care what the heck you are, like a doctor, an athlete, is the moment your purpose is pulled from you, you feel lost. And that's when the enemy starts knocking on your door, and the enemy's the best salesman there is. And he'll get you drinking. He'll get
distractions,
you
whatever it is.
Yep. He'll get you drifting in life.
Man, wow, that was good. We talk a lot about association, and I just love the anchor and beacon. I think first of all, anchors aren't bad people. They're not trying to be bad people. They're not intentionally doing this, but just recognize an anchor as an anchor, and don't fault them for that, but recognize it and be cautious of, if you're in those discussions, be cautious of it. Also be cautious of how often you're in those discussions, and go find beacons and hang out with beacons and become a beacon, right? Like be a beacon yourself. Like, I mean, honestly, ask yourself the question, am I an anchor for others or am I a beacon for others? And it doesn't mean you're good or bad either way. It's just like, think about, are you an anchor or a beacon? But the people you surround yourself are so powerful. And I love that so much. And then, man, this purpose question, I want to dig into that a little bit, because you're giving, I mean, so just to make sure, like Aero Recovery, down and out veterans thinking about the worst thing possible taking their lives, and you're giving them, they have the skill set, but you're training them, you're building their mindset, and you're giving them purpose because they're going out and they're doing phenomenal things. But now I want to connect this to our listeners. So I'm not sure what my purpose is. Like I think I know the direction I want to go, but God only knows, right? Like we don't really know. And what I encourage people is like, you don't have to know, move in that direction. Like wherever the beacon is taking you, just move in that direction and just trust that it'll work out. But how do you think about that? Like I don't know what my purpose is. I haven't really thought about that much. What's your guidance on that?
My wife, Britnie, she has a really good little line. She says like, your why will make you cry. And the program that we send our veterans through, what it really does is it helps you get to be where you want to be at the end of your life. And if you have not done this exercise, I really encourage everybody listening to do this, is sit down and write your own eulogy. So you write your eulogy at the end of your life when you're, 90, 100 years old, hopefully, but you write it as if what you would want your loved ones to say about you and what you accomplished in your life. And then take a look at that eulogy. And then the next thing you do is you write your eulogy as if you died today. And you're gonna, this is a very normal thing that we do, especially in military planning. It's going to identify those gaps.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what, I'm here now, I want to be here. What do I need to do and fill in to be able to get to this point? And at the end of the day, like, this future eulogy that you have, it may change, because you hit the nail right on the head. Like, if you don't start taking steps forward and definitely take them towards those beacons, you're never going to know anything in life. It's just about perspective. Those of you that have been blessed with the ability to travel, at a younger age, you're going to see the world completely differently. You're going to see opportunities completely differently. We have everything possible. The entirety of human knowledge is at your fingertips nowadays. So you need to enlighten, enrich, and open your world up, and you'll start seeing things that are important to you. And another little exercise I like to do too is I call it a purpose smile. We all carry, these things around with us nowadays, our phones, and take pictures everywhere and all the different places. And what I like to do is I go back through my phone periodically, and I can find these points in my life where I call it your purpose smile, where you'll see a picture, and you have like the ones where you're posing where, like, oh, hey, we got to take pictures with everybody. Or you have
Yep.
those ones where like you're just cheesing it up, man. And I'm like, man, like, I was freaking happy that day. Like,
Yeah.
what was I doing that day? Where was I? And for me, it's mainly like I'm in Honduras and I'm working with kids out there, or I'm back and visiting my family. Like, when I see that purpose smile with me, or I'm at my organizational end of year meeting with my whole team around me, and like going over the work that we did, like, and I'm just cheesing it up, and like, that's, to me, that's a purpose smile. So how do I replicate those moments and then be intentional about putting those in how I plan my steps forward, and everything boiling down to my daily activities? So you've got to be intentional about your life, and you have to understand that, we have a finite amount of time. A really great buddy of mine, Trav Bell, he always says this, and I love it. He says, I am sick and tired of looking at people who die at 40 and they don't get buried till they're 80.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so, like, resonates with
Yeah.
me so much. Like, your mission is never over, man.
And I
You
and
just, you
again
just got to keep moving.
I I think the eulogy process is a really good one. And I would say two things. One, give yourself some grace for where you're at
Hmm.
today. Don't beat yourself up over it. But the point of the exercise isn't to beat yourself up. It's to gain clarity on a direction you want to go. And then you, it's not going to be exactly as you planned out, because while you can move in that direction, God has a plan. But just move in that
Hmm.
direction. Just take the small steps to go, and it doesn't. I mean, just go in that direction. And then, I mean, this purpose discussion, and you said your wife Britnie, your why will make you cry, but then you also went to purpose smile. Like, are you doing things that make you cry and smile a lot? I think is a cool way to think about,
Yeah.
like, if your emotions are in it in what you're doing, you're gonna cry a lot, you're
Hmm.
gonna smile a lot. And I just think that's really neat. I want to talk about your mindset a little bit, Jeremy, and how that was formed. Like, what were some major things? Obviously, I'm sure the military, I'm sure some of the good things and bad things you talked about. Like, so what were some major shifts that helped you grow your mindset, especially maybe when you were at a low point coming, I imagine your life of like high points, low point, and then really coming up. And I mean, you're just doing amazing things right now. I want to know how someone gets there.
Yeah. And I think the important thing to remember too is, at least for me, I'm not always up, like, with this strong, like, powerful mindset. But what I have come to understand is, I think there's a lot of people in life that just want it to be a nice, flat, easy road, right? Where it's just, you're not worried about too much stuff, and life just comes easy. But really, if you take a look at a chart, you're going up and down and up and down, and that's really like on an echocardiogram or something. That's
Yeah.
life, man. Like, that's your heartbeat. That's how it is.
Yeah.
So just once you understand that, yeah, you're gonna have lows, but you'll come out of them. Like, you'll come out of them, and you're gonna experience something great. And usually, and this is what I've discovered, is whether it's something physical or something, more importantly, something mental, any of these challenges that you face, and once you overcome them, that sense of accomplishment that's what really drives me. Like, I'm a big proponent of do hard things on purpose. But once you start doing these hard things and you overcome those, you have that, it's like a chip on your shoulder, but a positive one, right? You
Yep.
have that sense of accomplishment, and then just being a good human being, you need to share that, like not in a gloating sense of or sort of way, but share those victories, especially when it's a victory that came out of fire or out of
Right.
a real bad drop, because there are people that are right there where you were, and
Yeah.
you will inspire them to get over that challenge. And hopefully you don't know how bad people are. I've lost dozens of people that I know in the military to suicide. And I nearly lost myself, and my family lost me in December of 2020, because it was just at that point where I felt helpless and lost. And, there's alcohol involved and prescription medication and all of that. But it's just knowing that you will rebound and things will get better. And I take a look at everything that I've done since that point in my life, and it's not about me, but it's about the work. And we've been able to rescue or contribute in the rescue of over 8,000 people so far, and that's just in 4 years, which is, it's pretty incredible.
Um, I love so the do hard things on purpose. I was going to take it. I'll say two things. One, first of all, I think whether you're 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever it is, don't don't think you can't grow your mindset more over time and stop doing this. Because I was
Mm-hmm.
going to go to like we're trying to do this with our kids and create situations that are challenging that they have to struggle through, and you let them struggle and get through that. And like but it's easy for me to talk about that in the context of my kids. But the question is, am I doing that myself? Are you doing that
Mm-hmm.
yourself? Are you creating hard situations that are mental challenges? That can be physically mental challenges. That can be, or sorry, I messed up. That can be physical challenges. But a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times, even physical challenges, they're really mental challenges, right? Like I did a half marathon, nothing to write home about, but it was just I wanted to do it for myself, and I wanted my kids to see I'm going to get up and I'm going to train for it. I'm going to have a goal and a target I want to hit, and I'm going to go finish it. In that process,
Mm-hmm.
it's like this isn't me, this is for anyone. You're building your grit muscle. You're building your muscle where if you do these things, you can absorb those lows better because you know they're just lessons. You're going to be able to get through
Yeah.
those better in the future. So I I love this. I love to do hard things on purpose. When I first heard this, I wasn't really sure about it to be quite honest. But I think it's so important and it just prepares you so much. And don't think this is a younger person or kids thing. No, this is no matter where
No.
you are, you need to be doing this. So I like that a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
military special ops, people think like extreme ownership and Jocko and stuff like that. How do you think about that? What's your philosophy on taking control, taking ownership?
To me, I'm very careful about the type of fuel that I run on. I spent a lot of my life kind of running on what I like to call negative fuel, where maybe I'm trying to prove somebody else wrong, or like a naysayer. And I've got nothing against Scoggins. Like, the stuff he does is insane and incredible. I just always I caution people to pay attention to the type of fuel they're running on. And what I really mean by that is, if you're doing something for somebody else, or like a naysayer, or just to prove somebody wrong, or for just financial reasons, or whatever like that, you're going to be you're burning on or hatred or anger, like you're that's not sustainable. That's bad fuel that's inside of your system, and you eventually at some point your system's going to shut down. And so what I really try to do is I try to connect everything that I do in life to what my mission is and what my goal in life is. And to me, that's to do what we're doing at Aerial Recovery, which is to save these veterans so these veterans can then go save other people. And it's about force multiplication is a big concept in the special forces. And so we're doing kind of like force for good multiplication. So I connect everything I do. And that's what I really love about, it's, I say love, take it with a grain of salt, about like memorial workouts, right? Everybody should know, or I imagine knows about the Murph, like on Memorial Day, or like when you have a
Yep.
fallen soldier, you'll do a workout, but you're doing it for more than just you doing the workout. You're doing it to keep the memory of that person alive and to honor them. And when you're thinking about them, you're not thinking about how tragic it was that they died. You're thinking about, this is what we do in the military. We're thinking about like honoring and keeping their legacy and their mind right. And you will do that workout harder, and you will be way less likely to quit when you're attaching it to a higher purpose. and that the physical things, your mind, 99 times out of 100, your mind will quit on you doing something physically before your body will. I have personally seen my body, I've felt my body, I've seen other people's bodies do things that are absolutely incredible because of the mission that I was on and I had to get accomplished. There was that idea of quitting was just not, it wasn't there. And I think if you don't constantly train that muscle of resilience, that the doing hard things muscle, if you don't constantly train that, you will very easily convince yourself that, I already ran 3 miles, I don't need to run anymore. I already called 100 people this week, I don't need to make that 250 call quota. Like you will talk yourself into doing, like, do not be mediocre. The world is full of mediocre people right now, and the world is on a downward trajectory. We need to have extraordinary people, and God has created beautiful and extraordinary people all over the place. They just don't realize it yet, and that's really what people need to do. They need to awaken to this.
Man, so first, I think testing your limits and testing your boundaries, because you don't know where your boundaries are. I don't know where my boundaries are, right? Like and just again, creating situations where you're testing your physical and mental, and a lot of times it's just mental, the boundaries that we put on ourselves and society puts on ourselves. We could tie that back to the first discussion. The second thing is the fuel that, like, what fuel are you running on? Man, I like that a lot. Like, I just interviewed someone a couple weeks ago, and are you acting out of fear, or are you acting out of love? Right? Like, that's like, if you're doing things out of fear of what might happen to you, what people might think about you, will you fail? Out of spite, as you said, like negative fuel, or are you like, no, you're doing things out of love and tied to your mission? And that's the other thing. Like, I think people need to think about purpose and mission in the biggest context possible. And then what does that mean for, like, if that's a faith-based mission, but then is that, okay, what are you uniquely talented to do? What brings out your emotion, your smile, and your crying, right? Your family, your health. How does your health, like being healthy, like for you need to be healthy to enable your mission, right? You need to, if you want to be out there, you need to be healthy physically and mentally. So I think just thinking about these things is so important. And yeah, all that just, it resonates with me so much. I want to shift to a topic that is really, I've learned more about human trafficking, and it's a horrendous topic, and I think people need to hear about it, because like where I live, people aren't exposed to it, to be honest. They don't understand how bad it is. And I have 3 daughters, and it's just a horrible thing. So again, you're taking military veterans, here are the heroes, you're giving them purpose, and you're going into either disaster zones or just countries or parts of the world, wherever it might be, that have human trafficking and horrible situations. And I mean, you guys are going in and recovering 10, 20, 30 victims of this, also capturing the horrible people that are doing it. So just tell us more about how big of an issue is this today?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because it to me, it's the single worst thing that happens on our planet, and it's so prevalent now. I mean, there are more people currently enslaved in modern day trafficking than there has been, like, for the entirety of like the transatlantic slave industry. We have 49 million people that are being trafficked nowadays, and that ranges everything from labor trafficking to sex trafficking to forced marriage, all these different things, and 25% of those are children. It happens every single where. The number one consumer of child sexual assault material is the United States of America. A lot of these, just politicized borders, politicized everything. But the fact of the matter is in the last 2.5 years, we've had over 300,000 children that have come into the United States that are unaccounted for, undocumented. Like, they're just in the U.S. And if you even take a fraction of that number, and those came in with bad actors or bad intentions, that's a huge amount of kids just on the border coming into the United States that are being abused. We just ran an operation. We're going to continue to run operations along the border, and we're looking into this exact problem. and we're seeing the signs of it. But what we get to do now is once we see the signs of it, we work in partnership with Homeland Security. They're the main U.S. organization that does anti-trafficking missions outside of the United States. And we look for Americans, especially that are doing this thing, because for me, like going out and if you know the right three questions to ask and maybe jump into 3 or 4 cabs or know the right people to ask in any tourist city in Mexico, Central America, South America, any of these places, Africa, any tourist city, you will be able to find a child to have sex with in the first day you're there. I went to a place in Honduras with my wife, and we both do these types of missions. And we jumped into a cab, and it was about a I don't know 15-minute cab ride from where we got off this ferry, and we're cabbing to our hotel. And in that 15 minutes, we were talking to the cab driver, and we had images, and we were looking at 6 or 7 young girls from ages probably 10 to 14 that we could have had that night come to our hotel. Uh, People treat human beings as objects. There's a lot of hate and war and, classes and religions and races and, all of that. And once someone views someone as an object, it's very easy for them to take advantage of them. And that's why we do these missions, natural disasters and man-made disasters, because where there are desperate situations, there's not groups just like Aerial Recovery that are going out to help people. There are human traffickers that deploy just like these nonprofits that go to help people to go out there and take advantage of people. That's the reason we got into Ukraine and we're helping people out of Ukraine. That's the reason we continue to do operations now in the anti-trafficking realm, and we will continue to do these things. But the problem is gigantic. $150 billion a year industry, second largest criminal enterprise, and the fastest growing in the world today. And I think a lot of that is just because we still don't even understand the vastness of the problem. And it's up to us to do something about it. And that's what I love about what we're doing in Aerial Recovery. We have the expertise and the skill set and the networks, and we don't really care about going into dangerous places because I made a whole career out of that. So, we will go forward and we'll freaking help these people that are enslaved. I just can't imagine being like a Ukrainian. We have being from the Ukraine. We have a documentary that's coming out. It's called the Hidden War. It'll come out in 2025, and it depicts a whole mission that we did where we were inside of Ukraine. We were using these some of our partners inside of Ukraine. There was a Dutch pedophile that fugitated from the Netherlands, went to Mexico, and that's why it's up to all of us. If you're listening to this and you think you can't do something about it because you're a normal citizen or a lawyer or anything like that, I'm telling you, you've got to pay attention to what laws are going on inside of your country, because you got to get out there and vote, just like hopefully you all did here not too long ago in this year's election. Go out and vote, because that's how you change policies. In the Netherlands, this individual, they were convicted of abusing children, but what they do differently there is, even though he was convicted, they don't take their passport. They just expected him to show back up so they could put him into, arrest him, right? They don't restrict their movement. So he fugitated to Mexico, and they were so concerned, the authorities in the Netherlands were so concerned about his human rights, because if he was arrested in Mexico, they were afraid what would happen to a pedophile in Mexican prison. So they did not tell the Mexican authorities that he was there. And we had a tip from one of our partners that told us about it. And we ended up running an undercover operation that stemmed from Ukraine. We did training in Hungary. We went to Mexico. It ended up leading to Ecuador, where this child sex hotel was being created. And I'm telling you, you got to check out this Hidden War thing. But it was 5 different countries, 3 different continents. And that's just one trafficking network that we were able to work on. That stuff, you know how to find it. And we at Aerial Recovery know how to find it. We'll go out there and we're going to do whatever we can to stop it, because it's just, can you imagine your country getting invaded? Only women and children are allowed to leave. So you, as a husband, you see your wife and your kids go across the border. Someone rolls up on the other side claiming to help them. Yeah. They take your family, and then they are gone, and they're being trafficked until their bodies give out. And while you're inside of it, that was happening and still is happening. And
Yeah.
people's eyes need to be open to this.
Well, I mean, 49 million people, 150,
Hmm.
like this is big business. This is really big
It's
business.
big
And I
business.
mean,
Yes.
you know, you gave that example, but there's unfortunately so many different examples. So we'll come back to how people can support this and find out more about it a little bit later. But um, I want to talk about so you're running an organization, you know, high high stress, high emotion, high intensity. You know, but then you also got fundraise. You got all these different elements of this that you got to do, right? Like, what's your leadership style? You know, think business, like just leader, COO. How are you leading your organization effectively during the just? I mean, you know, we have businesses and we're trying. You know, the chaos we're dealing with pales in comparison, right? The emotions, all that stuff. So, like, just what's your approach to that?
My biggest philosophy is to have not just, I do this for pretty much everything in life, is I don't want to just have friends. I don't want to just have employees. I want to have allies. I want people that are in my life, in my inner circle, that are on my team that believe in the mission that we are trying to accomplish. I don't want someone that's good at accounting just, and I hire them just because they're good at running numbers. I want people that are doing the accounting because they understand that the work that they do in accounting keeps all of our books pristine and clear and all of our audits and all that up to, because that is what donors are looking for. And that's what, as stewards of this donor dollars, we have to be able to do. Right. So I have allies and not just friends and employees. Right. So I make sure that I build a really strong team. I think it's important to get people that will listen, but they also show initiative and give them the reins to not just like start new programs, but to develop things out and then present those to you. Right. That's a really big thing. Don't. I'm very big advocate of like it's not my way or the highway. Like, yeah, I'm the kind of the ultimate decision maker with my wife and I and our board on whether we're going to move forward with something. But everybody comes with different experiences and different ideas, and you have to really encourage a climate that allows for feedback from your employees to feel part of the team. Like, let them. I was a big proponent of this when I was in the military too. Is there was a lot of leaders that would basically tell you what to do and when to do it, and then there were a lot of leaders that would tell you what to do and when to do it. More importantly, why you're doing it.
Yeah.
So really connect the why on what you're trying to do, what the mission is. Pay attention to the outlet for your companies. If you're not running a nonprofit, but you still can use your company as a force for good. You can work towards things and set aside a certain amount of it to go to charity or go back into 401ks for your employees or wherever the heck it is. Like, make sure that they're valued, they feel heard, they feel led, and communicate constantly. I think that's
I
kind of the big ones I use.
I think them understanding the why and tying back to, you know, I think I think just to tie back even to the earlier part of the discussion, ensuring that you understand, you know, why you're doing what you're doing is the first step. But then from a
Mm-hmm.
leadership perspective, you know, our first core value, we have five core values, is purpose and faith. And we're gonna ask employees like, hey, are you aligned to what we're doing here? Like, are you in alignment with that? Because if an employee is not aligned to that, then they I want to know that because maybe they don't belong here and we
Mm-hmm.
don't want someone here that's not aligned to our purpose, and that's completely okay. That is
Yeah.
100% fine, right? But you like just I I think the first step though is getting like, are you clear on your mission and really why you're doing it? Is it to take care of your employees? That should be part of it too. But are you gonna give back? Are you gonna donate to other organizations? Are you gonna serve your customers in some way? Are you just gonna, you know, are your employees gonna have an impact in the world because you have a great group of employees that can become leaders throughout the U.S. or whatever it is, or just the region? Just get clear on really what your why is, and then think about the core values and ensure that your employees and your team members know what the mission is as well. And it's hard though. Like, if I compare that to what you're doing, like I could be a critic and say that's so easy for you to say, Jeremy, because your why is so awesome. Like, it's what you're doing is just phenomenal. Um, but all the work we're doing, like, all the work we're doing, leaders of companies, they have really important work just to help lead and make good people and good leaders too. There's just you can have a lot of impact running businesses, whatever you do. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important too for, as a leader, this is one thing that I've encountered too is in the nature of the work that we do, we do get, a sense of recognition or, I was just on like the Dr. Phil show. A couple of my guys were on Sean Ryan podcast. There are some acclimates that come with it, or accolades, sorry, that come with it. And it's also important when people, you have to know the character of the people that you're hiring as well.
yeah,
I've experienced this too, where if they don't believe, they may believe in the mission, but if they don't believe in you and as the leader of the mission, or grace runs both ways. To be able to give you grace as well, the amount, and I'm sure as a business owner, you experience this too, and an entrepreneur, like you're never stopping. There is no Saturday or Sunday or anything for me. Like I work 7 days a week all the time. I've got a 1-year-old son, and like I'm busy, but I need grace as well. And I need people to understand that I don't like, I go on these podcasts because I really believe and it feels good for me to tell my story and expand it. But I have the most knowledge on the organization. So like, it's my wife and I, we should be the ones on the podcast, or we should be the ones doing this. So we're talking about it, we've had people that don't necessarily feel aligned with that. And they are, that little seed of jealousy can come in too. So you got to pay attention to that stuff. And that's, you've got to have a regular amount of time that you check in with your employees. In the military, we had monthly counseling and quarterly counselings, annual counselings. So I'm not saying it has to be that formal, but you have to talk to your employees, because if you don't talk to them, or you don't have good managers in place that can talk, or a good HR system, they will start talking to each other. And the amount of the craziness of decisions that they can make, or ideas or concepts that go in their head, is like unbelievable to me. I've experienced this personally, and
yep.
that was from a lack of communication, mainly from and overworking. So you have to prioritize time with your employees as well.
I think being connected is so important, not just staying in alignment to the purpose and what you're doing and moving in the right direction, but also just knowing what's going on in your employees' lives, what challenges they have, how you can help support them. If there's things going on in their mind or that they're talking about, that's going to happen, but you want to know about it too. So I think just some form of staying connected to, I think, your team is so important. Jeremy, I want to ask a couple of closing questions here.
Yeah.
First one, and honestly, I was thinking about this question beforehand. I'm excited to ask you this. Like, if you step back and reflect, because if I think about people that are doing awesome things, like top of the list right here, Jeremy, Locke, you and Britnie, like you guys are doing amazing work. If you step back and reflect, how does what you do, how does it make you feel?
It makes me feel good. It really does. Every time, I don't always get especially when I do the anti-trafficking stuff. A lot of times my team will do missions where we portray ourselves as bad guys. And if we do our job correctly, the victims and then survivors that we rescue, they look at us as bad guys, right? So you don't, but so it is kind of hard to have that connection a little bit, but you can only you just think about them. And for me, and I think a lot of veterans probably have this. I think a lot of good people kind of have this instinct in them where it's like, that you're the type of people that like to give presents at Christmas and see people's reactions, as opposed to the type of people that like to get the presents at Christmas. I think I have an organization where I feel like through the generosity of our donors and supporters and my amazing team, we constantly are like just giving presents out to people is what it seems like. So how could we not feel good? And a lot of times the presents that we're able to give is freedom and rescue, like it saved life. I mean, we were doing that after Hurricane Helene, 11-day-old baby that we're able to save. There's a grandmother that was cut off that we're able to, she was over 90 years old and we're able to get, save her life. And so there's no other greater feeling than just to be able to help people. And God's just really blessed me with, the network and my wonderful wife who's, got me into this work in the first place, and the great people I've met along the way that when I'm like, hey, we got to do this. I know this guy 5 years ago. I'm going to connect him. And almost every time I reach out, I'm like, hey, I got something for you. And they're like, oh my God, I've been needing this. Like, what do you need? Those are those things that I think God's just really, and I was blind to all these signs he's been giving me for most of my life, but now I'm looking back like, oh, oh, there you were right there. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what I
Look,
was looking at.
it's easier to connect the dots backwards. It's not as easy to connect the dots
Yeah.
forward. What you talked about with when you're going in and you're acting, portraying yourself as a bad guy, like I took what you said, but like acting out of love versus fear. Like a big fear we have is what will people think of us, and talk about the ultimate. What will these kids think of me because they think you're a bad guy, but you're truly not. You're getting over what they think of you because you know what's best. You're acting out of love. Like I think that's
Hmm.
really neat. Like just the ultimate. So thank you so much. What is going to make aerial recovery successful moving forward?
Awareness of not just who we are, but what our mission is, because our mission is very important and it affects a lot of people. The mental health, the prevention of suicide amongst our veteran and first responder community, awareness and understanding that there are nearly 50 million people that are currently enslaved, the awareness and understanding that you require a certain type of people to be able to come in and fill as a stopgap over some of these, especially these larger scale disasters like we saw with Hurricane Helene. All of the emergency response systems were completely tapped out. There's a lot of bureaucratic red tape that happens when you are a government organization or an agency. But when you have the flexibility and the agility and the adaptability of a nonprofit that can come in and work quickly, we can and are able to help and save lives. And then, of course, what every nonprofit says is the financial backing to be able to go out and do these rescues. Like we
Yep.
have a great plan in place. We've been executing that plan, but as with any organization, we need to scale it.
Yep.
So we are active right now in about 12 different countries doing anti-trafficking missions. One of those being Mexico. And if just to put things into perspective, we work in one other place we work is Honduras. Honduras has about, I believe, a population of 8 million people. Mexico City has just itself has a population of 23 million people. So the scale of it is enormous, but we have the heroes in our Heal the Heroes program. We have the network of most of my operators now that run our anti-trafficking are retired Homeland Security investigators that have been doing this for decades. And they want to go out and serve because they just hate human trafficking and they hate some of the handcuffs that are on them, being a U.S. governmental organization. And the same thing as with Tim Ballard from the movie The Sound of Freedom, like he got into creating a nonprofit that is anti-trafficking work because of the fact that he was seeing human beings that were trafficked that weren't Americans, and that wasn't his jurisdiction. So now at Aerial Recovery, we run under God's jurisdiction, which is everywhere.
Oh,
So
I like that.
it gives us a little bit more authority.
Yep. Man, so good. Jeremy, I can't thank you enough, man. I'm so appreciative of it. And I want to, for our listeners, I don't know if you heard my emotion coming out during the discussion Jeremy got to me. This is real stuff. And how can people, first of all, so much good information for people too, but I really want us to support aerial recovery collectively. I think we can have impact. We can do that in two ways. One, if this was impactful, share this with somebody. Hey, if you know
Mm-hmm.
somebody that maybe they are a giving person and they can support Jeremy and what they're doing, share this episode with them and say, hey, check this out. But two things. One, another thing I'll say because I heard you say it elsewhere. If you're a military veteran and you're looking for some of this, reach out to me directly and I'll connect you with Jeremy. I can help facilitate that.
Please do.
Um, but if you want to help support the cause, looking at the cause, Jeremy, how can people go do that more?
Very simply, go to aerialrecovery.org. I'm very proud of our website that we have now too. There's a lot of great information on there. You can donate on there. You can go to the initiatives and go to Heal the Heroes. You can nominate and or sponsor a veteran. If you don't have the money, but you're brother or your husband or your wife or whoever it is, they need healing. You just go on there and nominate them for the program. Fill that out, as much information as you possibly can. So when we do the selections, we can prioritize correctly. But please just go on to aerialrecovery.org. Check out what we're doing. Obviously, you're able to donate there as well. And if you want to get into contact with anybody from my team, you can also send an email to comms, which is COMMS at aerialrecovery.org. And we'll get back to you guys there too. So please, just any questions. We do disaster relief. We do anti-trafficking. We have a very robust Field of Heroes program. We're always looking for mentors as well for our heroes. So if you are have experience in business and you wouldn't mind donating a little bit of some coaching time to help mentor a veteran to, build a small business or something like that, we're always looking for people like that as well to help our heroes out, be successful in whatever they now understand as their new mission in life.
Man, so good, Jeremy. Again, thanks so much. You're truly saving lives, stopping evil. We need more of this. Thank you so much for coming on the show, man. I just appreciate it so much.
Thanks, Phil. I appreciate you too.
Thank you for listening to the Muller Real Estate and Business Podcast. We hope you found today's episode helpful. If you know current or aspiring investors or entrepreneurs or anyone that would benefit from today's episode, we appreciate you sharing it with them, or better yet, providing us a 5-star review. To learn more about Muller Real Estate, visit our website at www.mullerre.com. You can also sign up for our newsletter or local events via our website. In closing, I encourage you to be purposeful in all areas of life, educate yourself, network with others that have been successful, take action, and lead. Thank you.